Hello and welcome back to Beyond 50. Today I'm going to be going over the day that Frank and I spent in Seoul, South Korea as sort of a layover day on our transit to China. So we only had a single day to spend in Seoul, and there was a lot of things we wanted to see and a lot of things we wanted to experience, and we really didn't get a chance to get to all of it, but I think we ended up with a pretty well-packed agenda and itinerary for the day. So I'm gonna go over the things that we saw, a couple of travel tips if you are in South Korea, some things that might make your day easier than ours was, and a couple of the road bumps we ran into along the way. But overall, it was a great day, and we saw a lot of great things. We had a lot of great experiences with the culture and the history, and seeing some of the modern city as well as some of the historical sites. So let's get into it. We have run into our first problem. This is a problem. See, it's not a huge problem.
There's a kiosk there. I don't see human. That's what we need. It's humans inside.
We can't buy a train ticket because we don't have cash. So Frank's going to ask the guy how we can get a train ticket without having cash, because the machines only take cash. So we're trying to figure it out. All right, we're solving our problem of getting to, what's the name of the palace?
Wow.
Nope, it's not. That's not it at all. We're solving.
I was thinking Bukchon Village.
We're solving how we get to the palace by just taking an Uber, since we don't have cash. And ATMs are too hard to get to. This seems a little odd that it doesn't seem like you would just have an ATM down there in the train station also, just to make that easy.
Yep.
Seems weird.
But something we learned is, the mass transit, you still need cash to be able to buy down in the kiosk, down inside the mass transit.
And are we going to take a train when we get to China
for
somewhere?
Sure.
All right.
We're doing the high-speed
Okay.
train.
Yeah. Okay. 1 minute. I should stop recording and get focused.
Yeah. Bro,
Pay attention.
Is this it?
Pay attention. All right. So travel tips. If it wasn't clear from the last segment right there, bring some cash for the subway. You need cash to get on the subways, to buy a subway ticket. And if you don't, you're going to be stuck taking an Uber. And that's why I'm playing this B-roll from Uber rides over the trip. The Ubers were great. They were courteous and they worked well, but there was a lot of traffic throughout Seoul, and it's pretty congested. And I think that taking the subways generally would have gotten us to where we wanted to go a lot faster. My second travel tip, which is kind of related, is Google Maps does not work really well in Seoul. And so do yourself a favor and install Naver Maps. It worked a lot better for us than Google Maps did. That would be tip number 2. And our third tip would be, if you're looking to see the DMZ, which was a tourist spot that we really wanted to go to, you need to book it at least a day in advance. And because we didn't know that we were going to be going to Seoul until the day we flew out for Seoul, we were not able to book it in advance. So before we go to our first destinations, I'm going to take a little bit of a segue, and we're going to rewind and go back to the airport where we were in SeaTac, and I'm going to explain why we didn't know we were going to Seoul until the day that. So this trip was really made possible as a result of Frank's mom having airlines benefits and allowing us to use those benefits to be able to fly to China for very low cost. And so big shout out to Frank's mom for helping enable us take this trip at all. So just very grateful for that. But that meant we were flying on standby, and we had actually gone to the airport. And this shot was actually a week before the trip started. We went to the airport the week before, and we tried to get on a flight to Shanghai. And we also tried to get on a flight to Taiwan, and everything was really booked up that week. And so there were no standby seats available. So we went back the following week when we actually started this, and we were able to get on a trip to Seoul. And so that was sort of the plan, was we would get to Seoul, and then we would take a much cheaper, shorter flight that we would just, pay full price for from Seoul to Beijing. So that's really sort of how this trip happened and how it began. And So that's why we didn't know we were going to Seoul until literally the day that we were flying out. I did ask Frank a little bit, like, hey, what is it like flying standby in there on that earlier day? And here's what he said.
But this is, well, your first experience. You got the rejection.
What percentage of the time flying standby like this do you think?
I've only been not gone on maybe 3 or 4 times out of 100 or so.
Oh wow. Okay, so like
but
single digit percentage.
But of course, we choose better times.
Right,
this was, right on the line because it is kind of spring break.
Yeah. All right, so our first stop of the day, once we sorted out our travel issues, was actually the National Folk Museum of Korea. It was really sort of a museum, and we walked in. It was a free day, and it was right next to the palace grounds, which you can see right there in the background. There was this cool house that they'd actually moved onto the grounds that we're walking through here, and you could actually see a traditional Korean house from a couple hundred years ago and sort of how people lived. And then we walked over to this little statue garden of the Zodiac and talked about that for a moment. Okay, so wait, so you're the rabbit? Yep. That's why you were the rabbit? So what am I? What's
tiger?
What's 19? Probably, that makes sense, really.
It's right here.
What do you think? I'm either a tiger or a dragon.
It's right here. No, dragon's 1 year after me.
Okay,
this is all in linear.
No, that's what I was saying. So I knew it was one way or the other. Tiger's badass, bro. All right, so next we walk into the actual museum itself, and one of the first things we saw was these funky upside down trees, which were gate guards from the old days. And then we walked through the rest of the museum, and I'm not going to go into too much detail of everything we saw here. There's a lot of agricultural implements and a lot of historical artifacts. This was just if you like museums, this was a great walkthrough. I really enjoyed the time here in the museum. There was a lot of exhibits and a lot of just great historical artifacts. So this was actually a great stop that we hadn't actually planned. We were planning on just going to the palace. Our Uber driver dropped us off here, and we were like, hey, let's check out the museum before we go over to the palace. After the museum, we made our way to Gyeongbokgung Palace, which is clearly different than what Frank pronounced it as earlier in the day. When we'd looked up what we could do for the day, this was one of the top things that was recommended. And one of the things that was recommended that I didn't know about, but it said that if you rent a traditional Korean outfit nearby, you'd get free entry to the palace. Now, it happened to just be a free entry to the palace day anyway, but there was a lot of people that had rented and were wearing traditional garments around. This was something that ended up being something that we saw throughout the trip as we were later in China as well. And it was one of the things that was really cool about the whole region was people dressing in traditional garb, getting to see people out wearing the traditional outfits, taking pictures, and sort of just enjoying some of the history and having some fun with it. So it's kind of like this cool cosplay thing, but it felt not quite like cosplay because it really felt like people out just enjoying the traditional culture. So we walked around the palace grounds for quite a while. There's these sort of gardens towards the back here. There's quite a few buildings. We didn't take any sort of guided tour on this, so I don't have a whole lot of history on this, other than this is considered the grandest of the 5 grand palaces in the area. So it was a really neat area to see. And there's just a lot of people around enjoying the sights. It was a really nice day. We lucked out, got a great day. It was like 70 degrees out, sunny, beautiful day to be out enjoying.
Yo, don't press this button. Oh, I'm locking it. Hey.
Nice.
Yeah, good.
Just for a little context, these guys were trying to recreate a previous photo that they'd had in the same spot. So Frank was trying to frame it exactly the way that it was taken before, and it was just a nice, fun little interaction. So our next stop was not far away, so we just took a easy walk through the city, and along the way we ran into a lot of police buses. This was just a few days before the South Korean president was finally impeached and removed from office. And I didn't get video of it, but as we were driving around later, we did see several demonstrations going on and protests throughout the city. So this is kind of a big thing that was going on at the time we were there. But this is our next stop, and this is Bukchon Hanok Village. And this is sort of a traditional set of houses. These houses, back in the time when the palace was, acting as a palace, this is where a lot of family and dignitaries and other people would live, and a lot of it's been really well maintained. In fact, some of it's a little bit here. We'll see a building that's being rebuilt, but there's a lot of people here also wearing traditional dress and walking around. And here's the building that was, I took some shots of being rebuilt. But most of these buildings in these houses, people are actually actively living in. And so it was a very busy, packed tourist area. I'm not sure how I would feel about living there. There was a lot of signs saying, hey, somebody lives here, don't knock on the door, leave us alone. And I think for the most part, people were respectful of that. You would occasionally see a car driving through here, and you can see how crowded some of this stuff was. It was a little bit wild. But it was just a gorgeous area. The architecture of all of these buildings was fantastic, and it was a really cool area to see. And we walked around through here for maybe an hour or so. A lot of people were walking through here, taking tourist pictures, and it was definitely one of the highlights of the day. Tell me where we're at, what we're doing, why you recommend it.
Well, we are at, sorry if I'm butchering it, it's called Myeongdong area in Seoul.
Yeah.
Hotspot for shopping and eating.
Yeah.
Tons of alleys, tons of food. I mean, look at all this.
What's the coolest thing?
The options.
Just
the options.
Yeah. For food, what's the food that interested you the most? What was the best looking food?
It's Korean barbecue, short ribs.
Yeah.
Noodles, porridge.
What about any of the food stands that they were setting up? They're not set up yet.
Yeah.
You didn't, but none of you didn't think any of those looked interesting?
They can be.
Like did you see the one I saw two of them for grilled lobster with cheese.
I did see that.
That sounded pretty.
But cheese, I'm not interested in cheese as much as I used to be.
What about the fresh seafoods?
Yeah, but I just can't do that.
But the barbecue, the Korean barbecues were what like got you the most attention?
Yep.
What about any of the shops or anything seem?
No, nothing. No,
nothing.
It's all food for me.
All food. I mean, it seemed like amazing options to choose from. Are we going to sit down at this place right here?
No, keep walking.
Or are you going to want to walk around a little bit longer?
Yeah, get hungrier.
Okay. I saw the tiny crab. We walked through here already. Tiny crab might be really good.
I'm sure it is. But I feel like it's just too much work for little return on investment.
No, I think you eat the whole thing.
I can't do that.
You eat the shell and everything.
I bet you all this is delicious. That is a really good looking seafood.
All right, we're at the Starfield COEX Mall. Starfield COEX Mall. And Frank tells me, even though we've had an amazing day so far, of seeing amazing, cool historical sites, cool shopping and food district, amazing stuff. I don't know what we're gonna see in here, but he tells me this is gonna be maybe the best thing of the day.
Hopefully.
If you're wondering why I'm not looking at the cameras, because I keep looking over at Frank. All right, so we'll see what it is.
I'm taking a break here sitting down. This is kind of nice, actually.
It is nice. Look at this building. Look at that building.
I know. It's all very... All right, this is what we're talking about. This is what's cool. That building over there with the big circle they're building on it, which HTC, I don't know what that is. A lot of construction going on here, a lot of new stuff. It's very close to Gundam, which is Gangnam, which is a very high end. What was that? Like there was like Porsches and Ferraris in that car dealership.
Yep.
It was very fancy, very high end. A lot of stuff going on here. This girl's changing their clothes over there. We'll just film that for a second. Not really.
This was our last stop for the day, and as it just said in that previous clip, it was at the Starfield COEX Mall. And this is the Starfield COEX Mall bookstore, and it's just this amazing, cool bookstore with just a ton of books just stacked up really high, great visuals, and it was just one more fantastic thing to see. So it was kind of a fun little extra stop that we threw in at the end. Got some cool pictures and stuff. So this was our day in Seoul, our one day in Seoul, Korea. We was pretty well packed, seeing all of the different tourist sites. So after this, we flew to Beijing. The next morning we got up, we flew to Beijing and began the trip to China in full. And so videos coming up over the next couple of days will be Beijing, Xi'an, Shanghai Disneyland, as we step through and did our tour of China. So thanks for watching. And if you like this, subscribe. And if you have any questions or anything else I didn't answer, feel free to comment and I'll respond to it. So thanks for watching.